coaching boys, girls ask a lot more questions than boys. So the girls that want to know why are we doing this, or you've done that, but why, or how can I do this? Whereas the boys are like, yeah, let's just get into it, and then they'll only think about it afterwards. So do you know when you're like briefing everyone on the session of what to do, that'll take a lot longer, and then you'll debrief. Whereas with boys, the briefing of the session, they're quick, and then the debrief is quite more heavily, because they're not asking why, you're trying to ask them what they've got out of it, type of thing. So I think girls think about it more and not overthink it. I don't want to say that, because I enjoy answering the questions, but there's a lot more, especially at like younger ages.
Hello and welcome to the Reflective Coach Podcast with Coach Luca. In this episode, I'm delighted to welcome community coach and current student Lucy Cross. It's been great to talk to Lucy about how her theory relates to practice and how then she can utilise that practice and take it back into theory to build a framework in terms of how she coaches and what she does in terms of her community outreach and work. It's currently great to talk to a student on their studies and what experiences that they've had to date, what their outlook is and where they're going. So it's great that Lucy's still piecing together her journey, that she has an objective, some goals, she knows where she's going, and she has a plan already in place. So at the end of her study, she has a great opportunity to go abroad and extend her coaching. So it's already great that we can link together an episode in a couple of years' time and see the contrast in terms of her growth and development since doing this episode and then at that point. But that's already great, because with that journey and that plan, it's allowed her to have ideas of the way she wants to coach. She's been able to learn, she's been able to adapt already. And over that period of time, we'll get to see how much more she does in terms of that and really give that reflection on it, which is great for this podcast, the Reflective Coach Podcast. It's great because Lucy has so many great ideas, so many great theories, so many great background experiences that she was able to talk about. And she related a lot of that to what she is studying in terms of how you would go out there and connect with participants, overcome those community barriers, the outreach that she's currently having. So setting up a women's section and starting recruiting for women, especially at an older age. It's not easy to get back into sport, especially with the stigma attached. And when you have families or you have a full-time job or there's a lot going on in your life, how can you add sport back in when you've been out for it for a long period of time, back into your hectic or busy lifestyle that you may have, and try to allocate even more time to doing something? But it's all about that mindset growth, that mindset shift. I can get back into it, I will get back into it, and I want to. So suddenly your physical, your mental health starts improving, you're creating social connections, you're back to enjoying something that you want to do, and it's never too late for you to come back into it. So if you're an ex-player who currently isn't playing, whether you're a parent and did play once and want to get back into it, whether you're a young player still and you've been out of the game for a couple of years, whether you're an ex-academy player and so on, don't stop playing just because your busy lifestyle gets into it. We can just readjust, but if you've always played and you've always enjoyed it, don't give it up, because there's so much still to give. It was great to talk to Lucy because she spoke about how you could support coaches in terms of that framework, as I mentioned earlier on. And it's great because she has such a great background where both her parents have coached themselves. Her brother has played and coached as well. So it's always been in the family essentially, and being a part of that environment has led Lucy down this road. And it's great that they're all interconnected and can share their experiences and really delve into what they've done as a family and continue that coaching journey and pathway themselves. So that background is really important, especially that environment, just to find how Lucy has come into sport herself and what she wants to go on and do. Lucy spoke about athletic identity, falling in dark places. You have to learn, and that detachment is really important, especially maybe in academy football, and you have so much that you're committed to. You give so much attachment to it, and sometimes you have to detach ourselves, especially when the journey finishes, to try and open up new doors and try and find other ways. But there's so much into that detachment which Lucy talks about, and it's so important. She talks about then in different doors that can open, good people, players, role models and impacts. And then back to that community coaching aspect that she was on about earlier, is that target audience. Women who have never played football at all. She's created walking football program at the council with experience, so community partnerships, and again that outreach and overcoming those barriers. And then she talks about how she would debrief with a team and how that would look. And we've never really touched upon this so far in the podcast, but debriefing is so important. And you can set up a debrief in different ways, and how you might connect with coaches, how you might solidify information, how you may break it down, whether you get to the important points, whether you have a full depth one. And it's really important to have a debrief, and that's something that I've always had with my coaches and something that I always instill. But debriefs are also important with players at the end of the session. It's part of my norm coaching practice. So when I see sessions finish and players off they go, I look at coaching as like, well, you could wrap that up, you could reaffirm the learning points, you could catch up quickly with them, you can quickly talk about how you felt the session went, what you'd like them to work on for next week, how you approach the game next week. I think a debrief at the end of every game and every session is so important, and that's really become part of my philosophy and my coaching practice. It's great because Lucy has so much experience in terms of coaching boys and girls, especially in a community background, which is so great that she currently has. She talks about asking certain questions, especially when working with girls, developing that understanding, developing thinkers, creating those habits. It's the little things that matter, and little things are absolutely massive. They're massive for me in my personal life. So when you work with different individuals, we relate to that personality, we relate to that psychology. It's about understanding what makes them tick, what makes them work, what's so important. Do little things work for them? Do little things work for us? And it's those little things, just having a 30-second conversation, or remembering that it's their birthday and saying happy birthday, remembering that they scored a goal last week and saying well done. Players absolutely thrive off this, especially as young players, and we need to create those memories in the process as well. But the little things can really matter, especially in community coaching, and as we say, getting players back into it after such a long period. Lucy is currently working on a great piece of work for her dissertation on about deselection in the academy for players and their retention in football. I think this is going to be a fantastic piece of work that she's producing, and something that we spoke about in the podcast as well. It's really difficult when your players who've been on that journey for so long, who've been committed in the academy, and suddenly they get that scholarship, they work hard for it, and then there's nothing at the end of it. So they end up falling off the pecking order, essentially. They end up falling off the production line. And then, although there's so much quality then which drops into this box off that production line, it's not really harnessed or not really going anywhere. And there's players that could be playing semi-pro football. They could have been taken on by another academy, but because they've been released by the one that they've been with for years, some players might never pursue going into the academy again. And there's nothing wrong with that, because they might realise after a period of time that they want to take their pathway somewhere else, that they're happy with what they've done. Whether they shut the door and go, do you know what, the academy football's done, I gave everything to it, it's not for me, I'm happy to play at a decent grassroots level. Every player has their own personality, as I said, their own psychology, their own journey, their own experiences. But I think it's really important for those players at the end, what their retention looks like when they drop out of football, deselection, how that looks, how we can support them, especially as grassroots coaches, how we can create that community aspect in terms of retaining players, giving them the opportunity to return and supporting them after that. It may be great that we're a coach and we get a former academy player and it's like, great, we got this excellent player, but we may never really bridge that conversation in terms of the support around it, where they have been released, how that looked, and what further support mechanisms that they need, or how they would identify needs throughout their coaching, that grassroots journey then when they're back onto it. But there is so much in this episode, and I hope you look forward to it. I love talking to Lucy, and it's going to be great to see her growth over the next few years, and I hope to have her back on, so look out for the future one. But right now, this is Lucy Cross on the Reflective Coach podcast. She is going to go far and further. She has a great background in terms of community coaching, the studies and refereeing so far, grassroots coaching, and she's going to go abroad. So already, we're on to a great coach here already, and I'm delighted to have had her on. You can enjoy this episode on Anchor, Spotify, YouTube. You can also find it on Podcast Addict, and you can reach out on Twitter and LinkedIn. It's the TRC Podcast _ on Twitter. It is the Reflective Coach Podcast everywhere else. You can find me, Anthony _ Luca 96 on Twitter, or reach out per the Reflective Coach Podcast on socials. Enjoy this episode. I really did. It was a great one for sure. There's many other episodes out there, but this week's episode is Lucy Cross.
Good, thank you.
Good, I'm glad. How's your day gone so far? I know it's still early, but
I've just had a meeting with one of my friends, so I'm on this programme, and we're partnering up with each other, so we're just discussing plans for the year and goals and everything. So, productive morning.
which is good, especially for a Friday.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
I've been off this week because I'm back in work Monday, so I've still got a week of annual leave. Where it's ended up being so productive doing this and continuing with it, for example. So it's been a nice week.
Yeah. How many have you filmed this week?
You'll be the fifth one now today. I've got 3 more then today, 2 more tomorrow. So I'm really trying to hit 2023
Yeah.
really well. So
Yeah, that's a lot in the first week as well, isn't it?
it really is, yeah. Especially like on today, back to back. Like my voice was killing yesterday after a few, but today's going to be mental.
Yeah.
It's good though, because like for me, even though it's a podcast and that, I'm constantly learning and meeting other coaches and taking things off them, which is really helpful as well.
Yeah. I've
So-
never podcast or do quite a lot of networking. Because part of the program that I'm on, they organise networking events, and I went to Seville and did quite a lot of networking. So it's uncomfortable at first because I still feel quite young and everyone else is experienced life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course, but it's good then because obviously you being so young, you get to learn off them and make those sort of connections. Because if they can set you up, also you get involved in this or get involved in that, then it's really helpful. Because I started out in sports development myself, and I ended up naturally networking without realising by doing so many CPDs and going out and doing other things in the community and that. And I ended up meeting so many people, and now I've progressed 10 years on between that. I'm still utilising connections and people that I know to set things up in the job that I'm doing now. So it's ended up naturally being a good flow for me. But when it's sort of directed and dedicated for yourself when you're so young, I think it sets you up in a really good place then.
Yeah, definitely. Because some of the jobs that I spoke to people that didn't even know existed, and I like that job. I like that type of thing.
Yeah, which is good because there are so many different jobs and variations out there, and that's what helped me. I don't think I would have saw myself 10 years ago doing the job I'm currently doing now, and I don't think that it would have existed 10 years ago. But it's great that it sort of has evolved and it's been seen to be recognised where it has been created. And my experience by doing coaching and community work has led me to ending up being into this role where I'm currently at the minute. So it's been a good transfer in terms of what I've done in coaching into what I'm doing now.
Yeah. Yeah, when I started off at Street Reds, and I thought Joe community coach, I thought it'd be quite structured coaching, but a lot of it's behaviours and attitudes and community engagement, and now that's what I want to do as a job, community engagement.
And that's what I've ended up doing. So I ended up doing a lot of sport development, but we were doing a lot of outreach, so community programs, positive futures, impact, trying to get into deprived communities and try and create opportunities. So then we ended up looking at behaviour in terms of alternative mentoring and education and how we could really impact and work with schools, and then really look at the community to look at a holistic program, and ended up leading me to work for Cardiff City Foundation, and now I work full time in a secondary as a behaviour and inclusion manager. But I really want to get back out into the community because that's more me, and this is sort of a good sort of stepping mark in between going out to that, because these jobs are great but they're only funded for so long, or they're only funded in certain situations, and things constantly change, and it's difficult sort of to go into that area in the long term scope unless you find something permanent at something like United Foundation or Street Reds, for example.
Yeah, pretty decent then.
So how old are you?
Turned 21 literally the other week.
Oh yeah, so still very, very young in that sense.
Yeah, it's my last year at uni this year.
And how long's your degree been?
3 years. So I graduate have my dissertation in April, finish May. Don't know when my graduation is, but I've been offered a contract in America from July. So I'm on 3 months summer camps.
Yeah.
And then I'm on a 12-month paid internship.
Oh yeah, what, back in the UK or?
No, in America.
Oh, that's
so
pretty
very
awesome.
Very big. I'm moving abroad.
Do you feel nervous about that, or really excited, or it must
I'm
be
really
lots of
excited,
emotion.
but then I'm it's a very big thing. I live away from home, so I've come home, this is my house, but I live away in Manchester, so it's not too far. But I'm always at a 45-minute drive home. But now I'm an 8-hour probably minimum flight away, which will be mad.
It is mad, but it's amazing because my best friend's moved out from Wales, and he moved to America for about 6 years ago now, 6 or 7. But he's currently living in California, so he sends me pictures of him like on a Palm Spring beach playing basketball. Like he went to Las Vegas for a weekend away the other week with his family, and like he's like, just come out here, come and live the life. And like he sells it to me, and I spoke to loads of coaches this week in America, and I'm like, I need to get out to America because there's just so much opportunity out there.
Yeah, I thought if I do it now, if I don't do it, I'll regret it. So
100%.
I'm gonna do it, 100%. Buzzing but scary.
It is scary, but for example, I've seen jobs go for like £30,000 or $30,000 and so on for a UEFA B coach over there, and it could grow, and there's so much you could do. But over here, you could end up having a full-time job where it's only £19,000 a year, and they're very limited here in Wales as full-time jobs anyway. But if you went out to America, there'd be so much scope to end up coaching full-time because they have such I've learned so much from the coaches I spoke to this week. They have club programs, college programs. It's so different across America, and there's so many different jobs. And when they get into being married and life settles down and stuff, they find it difficult to move away. But for someone like yourself, if you ended up doing your badge or whatever, I think that there's so much opportunity for you. And I think to be 21, finish your degree, and go out to America, have a 12-year internship, it could be life changing.
Yeah. So I've actually played in America. And we stayed with host family, and they were explaining like the club systems and everything. And I was like, so her coach that would coach her was on like a full-time wage, and I'm thinking, like, this is like grassroots essential. But it's not grassroots; it's a bit higher than grassroots. But I was just thinking, well, like, that's a bit mad. It was good though, America.
Yeah, America's like so cool. It's so amazing because obviously it's so big, and every state you go to is so different, and the life out there is just mad mental for someone when we look on the outside, and there's just so much going on. And even when you speak to those who work in a college program, they're not even like full-time teachers and they work in a college, they're just full-time coaches. And because the high school system and college system is so big out there, there's so much need for so many coaches, and I just think it's going to grow and grow and grow because it's so inconsistent out there. But America is growing massively in terms of its grassroots program, and I just think it's getting bigger, so there'll be a lot more jobs out there long term.
Yeah. My brother's actually going over on a scholarship.
Oh yeah?
I'll be coaching over there, and I'll be going on a scholarship.
So that's pretty cool. You could link up.
Yeah, so it's not as scary, but it must be scary for him, an 18-year-old doing that.
Yeah, massively, because I know my two of my mates, one went to America to do a scholarship, and one went out to Canada, and it was a huge jump for them, but they both said they really enjoyed it, really loved it. And my mate said he'd love to move back to Canada now with his long-term missus, and he just had such a great time out there. And he said he grew so much as an individual because he ended up being independent, going out, meeting so many different people, and just had a great time as a young person whilst being out there.
Yeah.
So will your brother be far from you then, or?
Don't have a clue yet. So colleges are looking at him, and he's on like the program, so he should get a scholarship. It depends how well how hard he works and that type of thing for whether he gets a good one or a bad one. But he's dead set on it.
Pretty sad for your parents losing both kids in that sense,
I'm
though.
in 1 year. I'll go over in July, and he goes over in the August.
Yeah, because it's not even like you go and then they've got your brother for like a year or whatever. It's like, boom, the house is just going to be so empty more than usual.
No. Yeah, but they can't live without football. Both of them. They both coach. And my mum runs like the girls section at our club, and then my dad coaches. My brother's the only one that's not got the coaching bug yet.
Well, you pursue playing, but you never know, it might work out.
Yeah. Hopefully it does, because I don't think he likes coaching.
Yeah, good luck to him then. So in that sense, obviously, playing yourself and now coaching, do you prefer coaching to playing or?
Yeah, at the current point in my life, yeah, I prefer coaching. I think I've kind of I don't want to say grown out of playing, because I still do enjoy playing, but I'm just getting more enjoyment right now out of coaching. But I would like to go back to playing like a club football, like on a Sunday. At the moment, I'm only playing at uni, and I do enjoy it at uni, but it's always coaching comes first.
Yeah, of course. And obviously then in that sense you can end up missing playing so much and you want to get back into it. But I found when I got back into playing, I ended up just being in the middle of the game thinking about coaching aspects and where players should be, and then I'm like, I've lost interest in this game because my coaching head is switched on, and I think for me I've finished as a player and it's completely coaching for me now.
Yeah. See, when I'm playing at uni, my coaching head sort of just switches off. I'm like, I'm going to enjoy the game. I'll do what I can do. But then I'll tell other people what to do, but I'm not like... I'm quite... When I'm coaching, it's quite like a facilitator, so I'll give you something to do and it's up to you how you do that type of thing.
Yeah, of course. And do you think being a coach helps in that aspect then, in terms of understanding the game and what your coaches want from you and how to help your team, for example?
Yeah, I think when your coaches speak... I think there's sometimes a coaching language, so you sort of get it a bit more, or you'll ask certain questions to get the point across to everybody else that might not necessarily get what's coming across. So
Yeah,
I think I'm quite good at asking the right questions, like that makes like the questions for understanding. That's what I mean.
yeah, of course. And that's sometimes what you need, because not enough players ask the questions or they ask it in the right way. Because sometimes they might go, oh, why is the coach asking us to do this? Why are we doing it this way and all that, for example? And it's because they're not understanding it from a coaching perspective. And sometimes when you do have that coaching perspective and then you try and think of it from a player's, it's hard to try and get your point across, but it's obviously come across in a certain reason because you're trying to get these coaching elements and aspects out of it.
Yeah. So what I've found is coaching girls and coaching boys. Girls ask a lot more questions than boys. So the girls that want to know why are we doing this, or you've done that, but why, or how can I do this? Whereas the boys are like, yeah, let's just get into it, and then they'll only think about it afterwards. So do you know when you're like briefing everyone on the session of what to do, that'll take a lot longer, and then you'll debrief. Whereas with boys, the briefing of the session dead quick, and then the debrief is quite more heavily because they're not asking why, you're trying to ask them what they've got out of it, type of thing. So I think girls think about it more and not overthink it. I don't want to say that because I enjoy answering the questions, but there's a lot more, especially at like younger ages. There's a lot more understanding of the tactical side of things.
And they're like key points that I'm writing off you now, because it's great that you sort of bring this sort of context up and content, because it's great to sort of have that differentiation and understand your perspective of coaching boys, coaching girls, coaching younger age groups, questioning techniques, that why, how debrief goes, and they're all really interesting concepts sort of to take away and review, analyse and certainly evaluate. And it's something that is heavy in education at the moment, is the underachievement in boys, and whether boys like reading and how they engage in learning. And then it's interesting how that correlates in terms of coaching and how we get our questioning techniques, how we give that feedback, how engaged they are, how much information they're taking on board, how much they're actually understanding, and then that difference between male and female. So for me, there's a huge connection between education and coaching, and it's really interesting to get that insight from a coaching angle.
Yeah, I think it's more, girls are more inquisitive at a younger age, whereas I think when it gets to the ages of like 18, it's on par. But especially in the like youth development phase, a lot of it more is let's just get playing football. Whereas girls are like, but why are we passing the ball like this? Or why are we doing this specific practice? And like, because this happened on like Sunday, or this might happen and this left, and then they're like, oh yeah, okay, and then they'll be on board and try to work with you. Whereas boys, you can just give them anything and be like, yeah, let's go.
And in that sense then, when it comes to coaching and delivering those types of sessions, is there a preference to have then? Do you prefer going in straight in and going, let's get a game going and get hands-on, or do you prefer then a lot of technical information, feedback, getting into the detail of it? Do you prefer either one, or?
So I'm quite, let's get going and then we'll talk about it during and then we'll break it down. If it's quite heavy, like technical detail, then I'd rather just do it, walk around and you pull one person out at a time rather than bore you with 10 minutes at the start of the session, rather just get the ball rolling type of thing.
Yeah, of course, because I remember going to observe a team that I was going to take over when they were under 16s, and the coach done a really heavy warm-up with them. They spent 10-15 minutes doing a warm-up. After they'd done the warm-up, we then took them to a side and then talked to them for 15 minutes, and I literally stood there and dined him I said, your warm-up was completely pointless because now they're just cold again. And I said, then all you've done is speak for 15 minutes, and how much can they actually recall from 15 minutes, and how much were they actually listening? I said, then you've cut into half hour of an hour session. How much impact have you really had over that period of time?
We did, so one of our units at uni was about like self-reflection. So I think it was something, I don't quote me, but something like you only retain like 30% or something, and then if it's recorded, you retain, I think it was like 50 to 60, or like just basically the emphasis on recording your sessions to get more reflection out of it, because you don't actually remember all the coaching points you give, and you don't actually remember the session basically. So it's like about retention. So then 15 minutes, they probably remembered about 2.
100%, and that's why it's important to have those building blocks and sort of break down your session. Then as soon as you go into your next session, can you try and recap from the session before and make sure it connects, especially for young players, because obviously we want to develop them as technically as possible and give them as many opportunities, but if we can give them the information from a young age, then it sets them up to understand the game as they get older. They can analyse, evaluate a lot more, they can reflect, and then they can try and develop more technically, because their understanding of the game. And then as they get older, then they've got the skill set if they want to go into coaching like yourself, because they've been given all that knowledge from a young player. And that's, for me, that's the importance of coaching. Is it's not just about the ball work, it's not just about the contact, but can we give them the information on and off the field, how we do it, whether it's throughout the session, how we're stopping it, how we're giving the feedback, whether it's concurrent, whether it's terminal. There's so many different aspects, and I think it's important to try and get that balance with it as well.
Yeah. So I've had so under 18s girls, and I've had them since we were under 12, and now some of my girls are going into coaching or they're going into refereeing. It's quite good to see them. I've grown up with them, and I was in high school when I first started coaching. Gone through college now. I'm at uni, about to graduate, and they're like in college now, and they're thinking about their future careers and that type of thing. And one of them's like quite heavily on coaching and wants to go into that, so I think that's a win off the pitch, because they're not going to become professional footballers, but like you're making good people as well as good players. I think it's about like being the role model being a role model for them off the pitch. I'm quite heavily on that I believe in. If you can't have an impact, that they're not going to go anywhere like talent wise or like development that way, that can you develop them as good people type of thing.
And that's a really important point, and it's great that you say that, especially as a young coach, and realise that, because that's what it comes down to. Can we create good people, especially if they're not going to make it as professional footballers, and can they remain in the game? Because they might start playing at the age of 6 and then they might play till 18 and they go, do you know what, seniors isn't for me. But then they might end up staying by refereeing or coaching, or they might become an analyst, or they might go into education around it. And it's sad to see when they've gone through 18 and they stop altogether and they want nothing to do with the sport. And you're like, well, you just put 12 years of your life into it. At least use it in some kind of way.
So my dissertation is actually on that. So mine is deselected academy players and whether they're retained within football. So my specific focus is coaching. So between the ages of 12 to 18, so I've gone for like youth development phase and then professional development phase, like the start of it. Whether if you get deselected and released from the academy at that age, how are you supported to stay in football? Because you see all these professional footballers, they come out of, like they retire, and then they start going into like coaching roles or management roles. But what's the difference between these 18-year-olds that get released? They've had all this experience in the academies. Why can't they become coaches, or is there any support there for them? So my dissertation is focusing solely on like that and the retainment like rates. So like you could come out the game and you could be a coach, or you could just be a referee, or you might just stay in football, do a bit of admin. But are you staying in football because there's such an identity around, especially in that academy players' identity around their club and that type of thing. So I think my dissertation will be quite interesting on that.
Very interesting. I've just made a note of it, and when you finished it, I'm going to say, can I read it? Because it's really interesting. And I coach under 19s now, and I know we got 5, 6, 7, 8 boys perhaps which have been in the academy system. And I remember when they were 14, 15, 16, And it just happens that I've ended up coming in grassroots. They're at grassroots now, and we've ended up reconnecting. But they were a year or two above my age group, but I was aware of these players, and they were very good technical players. They had academy scholarships, and they were really good players. And we're looking at some of them now, and some are looking at America, and just one or two though, because they do have the quality, and some clubs have come in for them. And you're like, but how didn't this professional club pick them up, or at least they went semi-pro? So it's great that we're retaining them and they're looking at that. But for the other six, we're like, well, what are your plans now? Are your jobs to go into coaching? Are you going to try and remain in football in some kind of aspect? And it's sad to see so many great technical players who have had that academy experience to then just go, oh, I'm working in a factory. Okay, it's great that they got a job, but it's like, right, I'm going in a factory, but I'm going to take away all this technical work and all this connection and love and passion and dream that I've had, and just not use it and just sort of throw it away.
Yeah, I think it's a bit sad. Like, I've come from playing and refereeing, and then I've wanted to go in coaching, but to completely like detach myself from the game, I'd honestly I'd be lost. I think my whole family would, because our life revolves around football. So I think it is a big, like the mental health as well for it, and like athletic identity. That if you come away from that, who are you as a person? And then you're left with that sort of like dark place. And I think it is really important for people to just, even if it's just five-a-side with your mates, just to stay involved with football somehow. That type of thing.
And that's a really interesting concept there, is that dark place and that athletic identity, and how we can end up detaching from that, because it is sad to see. And if we don't, if the player themselves don't end up remaining in the game, and then, they do end up in that dark place. And I sort of see with these players now, where they were in the squad last year before I took over. They won the cup, they won the league, they had an undefeated season. They're all progressing really well. 3 or 4 of them are in the first team, some are playing seconds. I was like, but the academy that they were in hasn't even recognised them or reached out to them or said well done, or highlighted them for having this success. And I'm like, well, where's the player aftercare? Where's this long-term connection? It's sort of like, we'll have them for years. We'll then have them pay into the system till they're in the academy. We'll churn them out. We'll give them a yes or no. We've taken away parts of their childhood, but then we're not going to re-highlight their success at a later age. And it's such a sad process to see without that player aftercare. And then the players do end up in a dark place, because you're like, well, the club I went through and all that has meant nothing in that reality.
Yeah. So I know that like recently there has been like player aftercare programs coming in, and like people that have been employed as like player care officers and that type of thing. But I think it should have been way down the line, because then there's people at like 18 that are just now meeting these player care officers and that type of thing. Whereas where were they when they were like 6 years old? Because the second you enter in them doors, you are not their property, because you're your own person, but you've got their philosophy, their values, and they soon become your own personal values. So that when you leave, you're taking some of your values with you, well, some of their values, and then if they deselect you, then your values are everywhere, basically.
Of course, and it's important that we say about under 18s, because then if we can have that player aftercare, and we can connect players in saying, right, you're 18 now, do you want to get involved in the community coaching aspect, or can we retain you in some way and support you in terms of having then those skills to go and develop in your career? And then if you're 3 years on, then we've played our part. And you can relate to it in terms of older players when they retire and the clubs have re-employed them and they've taken them on full time, and that's good for them. But as you said earlier, where is it for these 18-year-olds? Because then it's so difficult where they don't have that opportunity.
Yeah. I think obviously 16 to 18 you do the BTEC programme, and there's quite a lot on that. That same programme I did at my college, and to be honest, it taught me quite a bit. Like, we did a bit of physio type of stuff, sports massage. We went into coaching, so like if you didn't have your coach at FA level 1, you'd get that. But I think that was just our college being nice. But I'm supposing that like academies do offer the level 1, but it's kind of, do they have the support to do it outside, because it's so heavily on training and so heavily on the education, because you don't have a part-time job, because that is your job 16 to 18, but do they have the support to go into the community and coach? I think like a really good thing would to be making 16 to 18-year-old players maybe just like one, and reach out to like players and they'd understand the importance of their impact. And I think it also makes humble players for when they do go professional, if not, that I've been in the communities and I'm not just this big massive ego type of thing.
100% agree there, and that's what it's about. And I relate to my friend who went out to Canada, and he come back. We ended up working together, and he was talking about his academy experience, and he was put through his C license, and he was like, "Oh, that was a really good experience, and it was great knowledge to have." But he said it's expired, and I've not used it since. And I was trying to tempt him to get back into coaching, and he was like, "No, no, 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 no." But he's gone back into seniors football, and I'm so glad he's reconnected, and he's playing football, and he's enjoying it, and he's in that aspect, and he's ended up playing with a player from America, so they've ended up going back as a team. But when I was trying to tempt him into coaching and we delved into a conversation, it came out that he ended up doing some alternative education work, and then him and a friend were going to set up a private business to go out and support players with aftercare and players coming out of academy, because they both had that experience and they were like, there was nothing for us, we were just sort of left to get on with it. And I was like, it's great that you were utilising that experience and you're staying involved in the game in some way, because I feel that you would be such a loss of the game because of the experiences that you've had.
Yeah, that'd be a really good business idea, to be fair.
100%, and especially, if clubs can get it out private, or they can't, afford a full-time coach unless they're funded or individual, then, if they could do it session by session, I think it's a great business idea.
Some clubs do have like player aftercare officers, not aftercare, but player care officers. So they go in and they'll just talk to people. They might do a bit of sessions and that type of stuff. But I think that's a really interesting job.
100%, and
Yeah.
it's great that you talk about being humble, because not every player that we work with is humble in their own way, and if they can go out in the community and they can understand what it's like for how difficult it is to engage in football for some of the individuals, for some of the young people, it might open up their mindset in terms of the impact that they could have if they were to make it professional. So, it's a great experience if they could have that at 16 or 18, and it's interesting to see what clubs do to support their players. And I think if a big study was done across Britain in terms of all the academy structures and how many were supported, I think that'd be an amazing study and outcome to sort of evaluate.
I don't think I've got the facilities for that for my undergrad dissertation, but yeah, that'd be a good one. That'd be like a master's one.
Yeah, of
Maybe
course.
I've got a PhD.
But even when it comes sort of like down to it, and you're reflecting and you're evaluating and you're asking all these questions and you're working with other PhD students or masters or other students on your course, it ends up growing in terms of a massive area of knowledge, and you end up delving into other areas which you might never consider, all the questions that you have as a player. And for those listening and those grassroots coaches who might evaluate this or take bits away, it creates concepts for them in terms of the impact that they have when they're working with players, and when players leave for academy, the importance that they can return to a grassroots environment, or the relationships that they've had from grassroots, that they can return to that at any point if the academy doesn't work out, for example.
Yeah, it's my favourite session. I don't no longer do it anymore because it's like last year of uni. But I organised women's walking football. So that started off, that's how I got employment into sports development. I started with my club, set up women's walking football, got my nan involved, got my mum involved, quite happy doing that. And then it was in partnership with the local council for funding. And then, so my manager, it wasn't my manager at the time, he was like, I like you, I like your coaching, I like how you interact with like the community, and offered me a job. So that's how I got a job. But it is them community situations, the things that you like, that end up getting you in these positions that you can get employment from it. And if I never had done that, I wouldn't have experienced all the sports development stuff that I've experienced.
Sometimes you naturally fall into it.
Yeah, like I didn't expect. Well, they told me there's a job going live, and I was like, I'm too busy. Like I've got 2 jobs as it is. I've got uni, I've got volunteering, and then it just happened to fall into it. That I was like, I'm already doing this. I might as well get paid for it, and then do other sessions across the community. And then I think this year's properly made me realise I want to work in the community and sports development, that type of thing, through working in areas that I wouldn't necessarily push myself in unless I got asked to. And then now I will push myself in them because I met some really good people doing it and interacted with some really good like kids doing it.
And it's so rewarding in that sense then, because you're getting what you want out of it, and you're enjoying things that you may never have delved into, and you see the enjoyment from the kids and the impact that you're having.
Yeah, like some of the areas like with the kids, and they're just really grateful that you're there, that you doing some sport with them, which I think it's still bizarre, but I love it. But it needs to become the norm type of thing.
Absolutely, and it's great that you are out in the community, because I remember when I passed my C license, I was like, right, I want to get into a professional club now, and I want to do some development centre coaching and start growing. And there was a private academy which set up, and they said, come along, and then we'll put you on pay after a few months. And I was like, okay. But the first session, they literally just had me picking up cones, pumping up balls. I was like, okay, you've got to learn in some way, and they might be putting me through my paces or whatever. But then I was like, but this is all they sort of want me to do, is allow the others to coach and me to be like the one picking up all the cones. And then the one day I was coaching a grassroots team on a Saturday, and we were playing a private coaching centre, and the coach really enjoyed what he saw, what he liked from me in terms of the game. And then he said, I'm actually a coach at Newport County, do you want to come up and get involved? And literally a week later I went up, started with them, and 2 weeks later I was on paid. And 5 years on, I've been involved in the academy in various levels, talent ID, I've done development centre, I've led on sessions, and that's all because of one game or falling into it and knowing someone who knew someone who could recommend me, and that's what ends up happening in the community.
I think it's quite a good thing, because you wouldn't be in the positions that you're in if you didn't put yourself in the other positions that you're in. So I think you've got to be quite active. Like, it's active networking without actually realising you're networking. And like, some of my best mates were in football, and that's because just fell into it. Like, playing football with them, and then you're like, do you know what, you're actually alright? And then that's the type of thing.
And I think it's great then, because obviously you can interview for a job, or if you're, putting a job out there, you could have so many different applicants, and they can have so many different experiences, and you've got a wide pool of people. But if you've actively seen someone in the community, and you're like, do you know what, they're a good coach, I've seen this, and I've actually seen what their traits are, and they actually care for the kids and what they're trying to do, you end up actually naturally identifying great individuals who can really then help with that identity, help with the values, and really contribute towards what the organisation or academy or foundation are trying to deliver.
Yeah, I think that's how I got my job with the council and doing sports development, because I was just having a conversation with him, and then he liked my session, and then that was the type of thing that happened, and I was just like, oh right, this is actually okay, I could do this. But I don't think, unless I put myself in them situations to do that, I would have that job. So it was, I went to the club, the club like that I volunteer at, and I was like, I want to set up this session. I don't think there's an area, because women's walking football, there's not any in our area, but it wasn't the target audience that, like, women that have come out of football and they still want to stay active. My target audience was women that have never played football before. So all I can explain women's walking football that I coached at the council was women that wanted to play football but never had the opportunity. So it was like people's mums and that type of thing. And I did have a few that had played football before, but the majority of it was starting from scratch. And I hope they don't mind me saying this because I've said it before, but it is like coaching like 5-6-year-olds with an adult brain. I absolutely loved it. So it was like all the fun games, like getting like the basic movements of football, but everyone understood it and everyone could have a laugh. And honestly, it was like probably one of the best sessions that I've coached, like just going on. So I did that for about a year, but then we've had to, because I've got last year a union and dissertation to write and I'm really busy, I've had to come away from it, but I'll probably go back to it once I'm all like settled down and that type of thing.
And it's fab that you set that up, and it's great that you have, because without people like yourselves identifying needs and creating opportunities, then the game won't grow, or there won't be these opportunities provided, and then you end up getting someone who's never played football before, and they fall into these opportunities that you've fallen into, and then they suddenly might end up playing, or they might be identified to be a really naturally technical player, and they end up being in a club level, and then they end up having a career because of it, or they end up playing for the next 5 or 6 years for a club, and then their daughter wants to play because they've seen mum play, and it has that natural effect which you've created, which might last upon just that one session you've done, and there's so much more which they take away from it, which is great as a coach.
Yeah. So it lasted like for a year. We only had 2 at the very start, and then at the end of it, it was 12. And I thought that was quite a big achievement because then you could play 6-a-side, so happy days for everyone. But at the start, it was literally just games and movements, and then towards the end, it got where we'd play 30 minutes a match and 30 minutes like fun activities at the start to get people active. But the whole purpose of it was just get more women involved in football and get them active, basically.
And it's great that you talk about target audience and purpose and how you sort of set up and deliver those sessions in terms of the need. And I love that you said your target audience was women who have never played football. How do you go about recruiting or targeting that target audience then?
So that was the hard part. That's why we had like 2 at the start. But basically, set it up with the club, so club that I volunteer with, and then went to the council for like the funding and for extra support. But we sent out like posters, so social media and in person and like in group chats. For it was aimed at all the mums for the club. So there's quite a lot of teams in the club, women, not women's, girls teams and quite a lot of boys teams. So it was sent out for all them, basically. If you know anyone, come down, that type of thing. And then it was kind of word of mouth type of thing. So someone would come down and then they'd be like, oh, I'm bringing such a body. I was talking to her about it at school, like during pickup. And then that's how it got quite, I'd say quite big for the target audience it is, because it's not people that have been involved in football, and it's quite nerve-wracking that you'll go to something, you've never played this sport before, you've seen everyone else play it, you might have seen your kids play it, but it's like starting fresh type of thing.
And that's another thing then, when you're engaging adults and those who might have never played it or never been in that environment, or they're at an age where they're like, oh, I have to get back into that environment, it can be quite nerve-wracking. And you're an adult, you're like, oh, do I want to embarrass myself if I can't do this anymore, or I have to learn this skill? And it can be quite a big stigma to overcome for adults, and to support them shows a different contrast between kids who are ready to soak things up, and it's a natural environment for kids to get things wrong. But sometimes as adults we put pressure on ourselves to go, we have to get this right at all times, and then suddenly you have to break that barrier and stigma to go out into a session or trying something new and go, I have to address this again, or I have to go through it and I'm going to get things wrong, and I might make a palaver here, but it's completely fine. And it's a great concept as a coach how we sort of address that with adults.
Yeah, so there was, one of the things was barriers. So for women, it's, you might not have that equipment. I'm not asking you to go out and buy £200 pair of new Nike AstroTurfs or like something like that. Basically, come in your trainers, come in some leggings, joggers, whatever you want, nice warm coat. We was inside for quite most of the year, which was good because we were just closed off. No one could watch us if that was an issue, because that's also another thing. You might not want people watching you because you might not think that you're good at something, and that is a big thing. I'm not bothered if you're good at it. There's no spectrum of good at it, because I think if you were there, you're involved, you're having fun, then that's an achievement for yourself. That's an achievement for me. Whereas I'm not really bothered. You're not going to be the next Wayne Rooney, that type of thing.
And it's great that you set up this program, and how you then say, oh, you don't have to go out and get this equipment, in terms of just come along, play it, experience it for yourself. And that's what ended up happening to me. Acunities first existed in one area, and then a grassroots club reached out to them to set up some sessions, and then Acunities first reached out to me, the sport development unit that I worked in, I got allocated to it, and then I supported the club, and the whole purpose of that was to set up a new team, so deliver a few sessions, get a little team together, then find a parent, and then it's sustainable. The parent takes over volunteering, the club then apply for funding from a national governing body, etc., and then that would be from the club perspective and how they then would create more teams. But I was there with the secretary, and it was a bit of a slow burner. We were not getting many kids over the first few weeks. I think it was the time of year they set it up. It was winter, dark nights, and they wanted under sixes to come. And I was like, I think you've tagged it the wrong time. And so it was a bit of a slow burner. Then he said, after a few more weeks passed, and we started getting a good engagement, and word of mouth started passing through, and we were getting more kids and parents. He said, would I take over the team? And I was like, and then I ended up being at the club for 4 years, and 7 years on, I've ended up escalating from that grassroots experience. So I ended up falling into that, really. But it's great how we can set up programs and create participation, and it's really interesting then how we engage and overcome those barriers, because there are so many barriers, and you must see it obviously so much in terms of the community coaching that you do.
Yeah. So one of my sessions is Moss Side, and there's not many girl participants, and that's because they've not really got role models. So they've not really got females in like on telly you obviously like see women's footballers, but there's not many that wear like hijabs, so that's a big thing, trying to increase female participation. But then at the highest level you've not got a role model to look up to type of thing. So we are getting more female role models, but then are we getting some that relate to you, that type of thing. So I think that's another barrier type. Yeah, it's another barrier because most of the lads I coach in the community, well, most of the lads, there you go, like the males, and then it's females. It's always females through like grassroots type of thing, but community coaching is more like predominantly boys than girls. But I think that's because of like schools as well. Schools advertising sports outside of school don't necessarily know.
I think that's from my experience and what I've seen. I don't think schools really connect with outside agencies or outside sports where they should, and really then signpost young people to them. And where I've ended up being involved in grassroots and being involved in Newport County, the great thing is when I've worked with the young people and the contacts I have, I've been able to signpost them, and then I've gone out and seen P departments and they're not signposting young people, and I'm like, well, no wonder participation and engagement is lacking in school because they're not doing it outside of school. So then they're like, why do I have to do this in school? Or they're not enjoying it as much, and then it becomes a difficult cycle then, because there isn't this clear cut one of I'll support you, we'll do this, we'll work holistically, we'll work in harmony. And I think schools have to have a more active approach in that.
This is why I think it's good that Premier League clubs, they've got obviously you've got primary stars and you've got the high school partnerships, but going into high schools and primary schools and seeing like you might just see the badge on like someone's shirt, and then you know that they're going to get a high level of like, quality coaching, and it is like PE teaching, but it is more from the coaching side. So I think it's important that these programs exist from the Premier League to increase engagement basically, because they don't always go in schools and do football, like it is multi-sport, but it does increase participation and community rates and encourages them to be on community programs.
Absolutely, and that relates to my experience at Cardiff City. It's not just about the football and you know getting the ball out there every session. Part of what my role and purpose was when I was at Cardiff City working in the foundation, we done a lot of literacy numeracy. So the whole point was to raise the attainment, what we would do is go into schools, we'd do an intervention, so it'd be an hour of literacy or numeracy, then they would get an hour sport, so we'd have a 2 hour contact with them, and then if we could identify the sport, it would improve their behaviour, therefore raise attainment. And then we set up community hubs, which would operate once per evening every week in that local area, and then the students could come and have support with the homework and then do some multi-sports with it. So it wasn't just football, and then we used the appeal of the Cardiff City badge to really attract participants and engage them. And there were a lot of barriers and a lot of stigma, and people were like, oh, you're only here to do football, you should only be doing football. And we're like, well, no, we're so much more than that. We want to support with your homework, we want to support with your schoolwork, we want to raise the attainment, we want to support schools in terms of engagement. And it was a real interesting programme to have worked on, and it was so much more than that. But we really used that badge as appeal to engage with the audiences that we were trying to connect with.
I think it's using football as a tool to do better. So, like we said before, you're not necessarily going to create the next Messi or Ronaldo, but if you can create a good person that goes into the community and they put good things out there, so they might get a good job or have a family and that's their goals achieved. So it's creating life skills as well as just kicking a ball around a pitch. I think that's quite important for me, that if a kid, like I'll be buzzing if a kid comes up to me and goes, Lucy, I've learnt how to tie my laces. And I'm like, great, I don't have to do them anymore. No, it's not that, but it's learning these tiny little skills that make you better people.
Agreed, and that's something that we had in Newport County. Every player must come in and give you a fist bump, or must say evening or afternoon, whenever the session is. And then the one day we just stood back and watched how many players were leaving the session and how many would fist bump us and how many would just walk off. And we're like, well, we really need to target those who are just walking off, because we want to have those good people skills where they engage with the coaches, they say thank you, or they say morning, or I'll see you next session, because that's really important. And then that's something that I took into my grassroots club, and we were massive on it. So coaches, as soon as coaches turn up, we'd all fist bump each other. Every child who comes in, you fist bump, because if you're delivering a session and you've got like 30 kids turning up and you haven't said a little morning or welcome to one, that can throw a child off massively. And it's the same for us. If we were to go into a session, we're working with a group of coaches and you know they haven't said morning, or they've just said get on with this Lucy or get on with this Luca, it can be then a difficult situation for us to be in because we can be put off by that.
Yeah, we come in, fist bump the kids, how was your day at school? And then they'll just be kicking off football, that type of thing. I think it's important though, the little things that you do to create good habits. And the little questions like, not, this is how we play football, have you had a good day at school? And you can tell if a kid's not had a good day at school because they're off and you want to change that, you want to make it a bit happier you want to make like the participant a bit happier by the end of it.
And I love that, and that's something that's come up quite consistently over the last few conversations that I've had with various coaches, is once you identify a young person or child who's come into your session and their day has, not been the greatest of days, or they've had a lot going on because of the external circumstances, or there's a lot facing them. As a child, there's a lot to go through. They've spent 7 hours in school, they've done a lot of learning, then they're coming out in the community or they're doing a grassroots session or academy, and sometimes they may not be the happiest, but then we still expect them to be at their optimal performance levels. And it's like, well, no, we're not always going to get that week in, week out because they've had a different day. And if we can alter and adapt sessions where we can make them happier, then we don't always have to hit every technical objective that we set in a session.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more to coaching than actual coaching. It's as much as what you do off the pitch than what you do on the pitch type of thing. Like sometimes you might be that shoulder to cry on type of thing. Yeah.
Which relates so much to those little things, those habits and those questions, because just having a question, how was your day, or are you okay, can open up so much, and then the player could end up breaking down, and then you can really identify and do that community work with them. But I think that's massive for me, is habits, questioning, and little things. Little things is definitely something that I expect in personal life as well, because I'm all about if you can make a little thing such as morning or a thank you or I appreciate that or drop a little text, it's massive. And I worked at a school last year. My boss was incredible. She bought the whole team advent calendars for Christmas. It was a little thing, but it was like she's thought of us and she spent her money, her time. She's brought it in. We got something to look forward to every day. And then this year I've ended up working at a new school, and I was in a meeting with someone, and then we have the same boss, and the boss came in, gave her a Christmas card, but I didn't receive one. And I was like, that is just wow. Like the little thing for me, that I was just like, what? Why haven't you done that for me as well as her? I just couldn't comprehend it.
Yeah. No, my manager did the exact same thing. So I work at a gym, and he bought us all advent calendars, and it's just little things. And like he got me a birthday card. Didn't have to do that, but it's like the little things that just nice people, really, I suppose. Yeah.
It really creates context, though, because then you end up seeing the environment that you work with, the dynamics that are created, in terms of those values, and how people work and how they manage their people. Because I know I've ended up stepping up into a management position. I really want to support those who I work with closely, and when their birthdays are, because when my boss at last school, every birthday she would personally bake a cake for the members of the team. She'd put up all banners, and then at the break time she'd get the entire team together, all the kids that we work with, and then she'd like make sure we all had food, sweets and whatever. But that was fantastic because it created a really good dynamic, and the kids saw how much we were appreciated by our own staff and as a team. And then as a team we were so close because of it. But now I've moved to a new school. You can see the dynamics are very different, and there's not this connected ability or connective relationship that we had at my previous school between the staff. And it's really interesting to see that from a leadership dynamic and perspective in terms of how different an environment can be.
Yeah, I think that's transferable in that coaching and managing, because if the players respect you and get on with you, like me when I was playing myself, if I really got on with a manager, you really want to work hard for them. So it's reciprocated type of thing. If you respect me and you treat me nicely, then I'm going to want to do better. So I think that's the same in like coaching, that if you like the kids, you respect them. Obviously it's a given anyway, that's what you do. But they're nice to you, and it just creates a good environment, a good like learning environment, and just a good general environment of better people.
I love that you say it's transferable, and it's certainly transferable in terms of the community work that they do, because every community that you work in is very different, and some can be really challenging compared to others, and some can be really difficult to go in and be in that environment. But if you have that great relationship with the people and individuals from that community, they're going to really respect you and go, do you know what, Lucy's all right. We don't have to give her trouble, or we can look after her, and because that's what it's all about. And some of the young people that I work with, they come from really deprived communities, and they've ended up being involved with some of the wrong people. But I know if they were out with the wrong people and I happened to be walking at the same time at one point, they would go, no, don't do that to Sir, or don't do that to him, because of that relationship that I had. And it's about being that positive role model, which, as you say, doesn't always have to be on the pitch. And what you're big on, you can end up naturally being that role model without having to go, I'm the role model here.
Yeah. I'm not a very big authoritative person, to be honest. I'm only about 5 foot, not got a massive voice. So I think it's everything you do around that. You can't control that. So what can you do to just be yourself, type of thing?
Absolutely, and I'm big on discipline, but I'm not the most authoritarian person, especially in a school, compared to some of the teachers that I work with, and they're quite imposing, and they can walk in the class, sort of go really quiet. And I don't have that, but I'm a behaviour and inclusion manager, so I deal with a lot of our really challenging students, and the whole purpose of me is to try and instill that behaviour. But because I'm not authoritarian and I don't impose that at times, it doesn't work off on some of our most challenging. But because I'm a little bit more laid back and I'm quite relaxed, they respond really well to me than if I were to go in rollicking them. And sometimes being laid back and not having that authority ends up giving us more authority than if we were. It's a strange one.
I was the same, so if someone was shouting at me, I wouldn't have a clue what was going on, I'd just switch off. So I made a thing that I'd never shout at someone that I'm coaching, or even if it's bad behaviour, because you don't know what's going on behind closed doors, and you don't know I don't believe in naughty kids, I believe in misunderstood children. So you're not naughty without a reason, that just doesn't happen. So just to take your time and to be patient with it, type of thing.
And that's what we had. We've had a coach who was very much set in his ways, a bit old standard. If you done this wrong, it'd be running lap after lap after lap, and he still does it now, even though I've left the club and I'm aware of players and parents that I speak to. He still does it. But we had a child, and he was very much misunderstood, and that's because he had a very difficult home life. Mum and dad were up and down, and dad spent a lot of time just shouting at him, and there was a lot of verbal abuse, and then it ended up leading to where a safeguarding issue had to be put in, because I was concerned about the welfare of this young person. But it's because he was misunderstood, and when he was going into sessions, he was just reciprocating the behaviour which he was expecting or was used to at home, which led to that negative behaviour. And it wasn't about rollicking him or sending him off, or stopping him from engaging, because once we stop him from engaging because we're like, right, he's disrupting this and it can be difficult, it was like, we have to change this to keep him involved, because this is a benefit to him. But it then relates to those little habits, because we're not essentially disciplining them, but if we can go, right, we need to listen here because you need to take this information on, or you need to be listening to me when I'm talking, or putting in little habits where it improves that behaviour, and then you can understand them to support them better. We ended up creating a really good individual development plan for him within the grassroots programme. So we ended up essentially becoming a bit of a teacher, a bit of a mentor, a bit of a coach, a bit of a youth worker, a bit of a psychologist, a bit of a social worker, player engagement, player family support officer, all in one role. And we were like, and the one coach said to me, we're doing so much more than actual coaching, and we're just volunteers at a grassroots club. I was like, this just shows the extent of the coaching world that we're in.
Holistic, isn't it?
100%.
That we're doing at uni, so part of the reflective module that we're doing is the FA, what's it called? It's basically a competency framework, that's it. So there's each box, and you might necessarily be good in one box. So I put myself good at engagement, but you might not necessarily be as good as with your leadership. So your different democratic or autocratic, all them types of ones. So it was that you've got to have all these little things to make up a good coach, because if you're slacking in one area and good in another area, what happens when you have to dip into that? It's basically all the different doors. What door do you open today to deal with a different emotion, type of thing? Yeah. So it's quite interesting to look at.
just making a note of that, because the little things that I pick off when I'm listening to coaches, it is great. It's like, what door do you open today to, connect with that emotion, because it can be so important to us as coaches, because we are people as well, and we experience so many different emotions when we are coaching and what we go through in life, and it can really affect then the way that we coach, because sometimes if we haven't had a great day, then we ended up being a bit demotivated, or our energy isn't as high, or we're a bit ratty with the kids, and sometimes we don't always realise that. But then if we just took a step back and realise what door that we have gone through, or what one that we need to shut to open it, it's a great real contrast to sort of take into consideration when we are going into sessions or delivering them.
Yeah. But then also the kids, what door they walked through this morning, or what side of the bed they woke up on, basically decides what door you need to walk through. So it's like a relationship, really. You might open one door, they might slam it in your face, so you got to try the other door.
100%. And I was watching Educating Essex the other day. I've seen it before, but it relates massively to one of the young people who were kicking off, and they were saying she would shut every door, even if she was in a room on her own. But they said they have to just keep going after her, opening these doors, and eventually she'll find one which she'll be happy to walk through. And that relates massively to what you just said, and it's so true, because that's what young people need sometimes, is just someone to keep opening these doors, because they will keep shutting them. But if we can keep opening them and going, do you know what, that's still there, we're still here, we're doing this, and you can do this or that, it's so important. It really comes down to that community work that you do. And it is great to see someone who's applying what their studies are, what they do in uni, to what they've learned being out in the community themselves, and really relating this. And it's been such a great discussion to sort of have, and it's really been interesting to sort of speak to someone like you, and it's been a fascinating conversation so far.
Yeah. I think uni definitely developed me and helped me, because all the different units and modules that we do. So first year was foundation phase, second year youth development phase, and then this year we're doing professional development phase. I'm not particularly interested at the current point in my life in doing professional development phase. So I feel like I'm quite young myself, and I don't necessarily want to go into a full-size 11-a-side game and coach at that level and ability yet. But maybe in 10 years' time I might actually want to do that. So it's quite good that we get the opportunity to experience everything. And not everything will be in the comfort zone, but you've got to try these things.
Absolutely, and that's what coaching is all about, and how we grow and evolve. And I know that I've coached everything from 18 months to 18 years of age. But would I go into PDP if it was full time at a club? I don't know. I'd be interested, but would I be as interested if I was offered the foundation officer job or development coach? And it's interesting concepts to take away, and these different experiences in terms of finding out what works for us and where we're going to go and what part of the journey we're on as well.
Yeah, definitely. Don't know what could happen in 10 years' time, type of thing.
Absolutely, you never know what you can fall into or where America is going to lead you.
Scary, but exciting.
Absolutely, and it'll be great to sort of catch up, over the period of time, and or see how it's gone at the end of America, and certainly do a couple more episodes, because there's so much in there, and I think that you're going to go on and have such a great journey. And I've really enjoyed talking to you, and there's so much to take away. And but before you go, sorry, I'm just going to throw 9 quick fire questions at you.
Okay.
Okay, if you had to have someone describe you in 3 words, what would they be?
Fun, caring, a little bit crazy.
Love it.
Oh, that's more than one, a little bit crazy.
Now, you could answer this already, or you might partially have answered it, and it relates a bit to the US, but it could end up leading somewhere else. If you could move to any country to coach, where would it be?
The US, yeah.
Fantastic.
I think it's all over there at the minute.
I think so. I think the way they're growing, they could end up overtaking England in terms of performance development. It might not be the next 5 years, but within 30 years, I think it could be major. And you're going to go and have a big part of that.
They've got enough money to throw at it.
100%, and it's just going to be even more money to throw soon. Oh. If you could spend a day with any coach or manager, who would it be?
Alex Ferguson but not now, but in his peak.
I think that would have been an unreal one.
Yeah, I'd love to know what goes on through his head.
Absolutely. So much there you could just talk about just within an hour, just coaching.
Mm.
You may have partially already answered this, so I may have a feeling what you might come out with, but who was or is your role model?
Ooh. Do you know what? I'm going to say Mum. I think she's put me in all the situations to get to where I am now and still pushes me. And her playing football as well, that's a big thing. And she's now got involved in like football side of things and continues to get young girls involved in football at our like grassroots club. So I think that's a really big. She got me involved with football, and now she's getting all like little girls involved. I think it's just great.
Absolutely, and it is great that you sort of have that connection between your mum and your dad, and you can relate the coaching experiences. And I was going to say, how did you end up getting into coaching? But it sort of stemmed in the back of my mind that it was from your parents, and you've ended
Yeah.
up going into it through that way.
So it was Duke of Edinburgh. So my dad, when our girls section of the club set up, it was when I was 14 doing Duke of Edinburgh. So I started exactly when the whole girls section of our club started.
Coach,
Full-time professional coach.
great answer. What would be your number one tip for any coach right now?
Just get involved. Go to your local grassroots club, get involved, see where it takes you. I think also just don't say no to anything. So today I was actually like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about this podcast, and it's really out of my comfort zone, to be honest. But I was like, just keep saying yes to things.
Absolutely, and that's sort of the comeback that I have from a lot of coaches or individuals that I get on. They're like, I don't know if I can do this, or it's out of my comfort zone. I'm like, just talk about what you do every day. And sometimes some people ask me for a structure. Some people like yourself don't ask me, and I'm just like, right, let's just get into a conversation and see where it goes, because you might have a really good experience or something that you're doing, and we might end up just chatting about that for an hour. So sometimes I have a list of questions. So like I had 9 questions for you, and I thought, right, they're just going to be as a framework. But then this, we haven't answered majority of them because we just ended up delving into other areas, and that's what I love.
Just free flowing, really.
Absolutely, and you've done really well at it. If you had an opportunity of any job or free choice of any job out there, what job would it be and why? It could be professional foot manager, it could be any club, it could be anything.
So I'd want to go as like a foundation head. So at a networking event, sat next to a lady who's the foundation head, and she controls all the community projects. And I think it was a really cool job. Not one that I'd have right now, but I'd have in like 20 years' time, 30 years' time. And I think it's just a really good job that you get control over the community projects, that type of thing.
And that's a great job to say, because a lot of coaches that you speak to, especially American coaches, they're like, oh, I'd love to be manager of Chelsea or the US national team. But it's great then sort of to come back down to a realistic level. And it's not to say that's not unrealistic, because they could end up doing so really well. But it's great to sort of go, I want to be a foundation head, I want to do this in community. And it's great to hear the different kind of pathways coaches can go down. We're not just on one pathway to go professional manager or full time. It's great to see, right, I might go full time community coaching, or I might just want to be an academy manager. And it's really interesting to sort of have those conversations with coaches.
Yeah, so when I started at uni, I was like, I'm going to work in an academy, like full-time academy. And then through the process of uni and through my own personal development, I've realised that's not what I want to do. Because I think you can have more of an impact, and it's more meaningful for me to go into these communities and create better people rather than to be in an academy and create really good players. These players might not be in the academy or be in the team in like 10 years, whereas you've gone in the community and you might have said literally one conversation and that's impacted them for the rest of their life.
Absolutely. And the final question, what is the one thing you enjoy most about coaching?
I think it's the off the pitch. It's the creating relationships and seeing young people do well outside of football, and then you come back and you hear about it. So it's not necessarily, wow, you just scored an amazing goal. It's, oh, you've done this at school, you've achieved this. Even though you've not achieved that for them, but you've created a part of them that they feel encouraged and confident enough to approach you and tell you about the things that they're achieving.
And what a great way to finish such a great episode with you, because it just shows the importance of the work that you're doing, where you're currently at, and how lucky the young people are to work with you, and that you're only going to grow and thrive from it. And you know, to be 21, you might sometimes find yourself in a situation where you don't know what you want to do, or you end up delving into different situations, and you're like, oh, I end up preferring that over that, and it changes my career pathway. But it's great that you have a sort of a plan and objective, and where you see yourself already thinking over the next 30 years. And I think, reflecting back, if I wish at 21 that I had more of a structure, more of a strategy, rather than just delving into things and going, oh, I've done a bit of this, I've done a bit of that, and I might do this, I might do that. And it was great to have, and I might not be where I am now without it, but I just wish I had a bit more of a strategy back then. And but that's the fun of being a young person. You get to find out different areas and delve into things and not say no.
Just yes.
Yeah. Well, I wish you the very much best of luck in terms of the rest of the year to come, and I hope America goes well. But it's been great to connect with you, great to have you on, and I'm glad that we have that connection and can stay in touch. And well, I just wish you the best of luck with everything.
Thank you. I really enjoyed myself talking to you about football.
Well, I'm really glad, and you're welcome to any time. But definitely stay in touch, and good luck.
Alright, cheers.
See you later.
See you later.